Hello, my name is Darren Thomas, and I am the Director of Educational Research Techniques. In this video, we're going to look at how to make a very simple dashboard inside Microsoft Excel. So, let's see what we can learn. So, this is our final product of what we're going to be learning in this particular video. So, you can see right here that I have my data set up, sales by month, and I have these little tables over here off to the side. They're called splicers. More about that later. And I have another little table down here called sales by teacher. And so if I click on this little splicer, I can now see data only for example, we call it intersemester here, or I can see it for first semester and intersemester. Intersemester means summer school, or I can see it for all three. And also down here, I can look at information now only by teacher. So this is the sales of one teacher, or of course I can include two teachers if I desire, like this. And so now I have two teachers, and notice how both charts are updating at the same time. So I have the total sales for two teachers here, and you can see their sales by month together. So there's lots of really cool things you can do with this. And again, dashboards can be actually way more complicated than what we're seeing here. But this is a very, very basic idea of what can be something much more complicated. So with this dashboard, you're allowed to play with the data and see it from multiple different angles based on exactly what it is you want to know. And I need to repeat, and this is probably the most important thing, more important than learning how to do this in Excel, and that is you must know what it is you want to know. This, in my experience, is the biggest roadblock for people putting together visualizations and trying to analyze data. They don't know exactly what it is they want to know, and that's where they struggle at the most. So let's go ahead now and go over to our raw data and see if we can go from the beginning with this experience. So this table right here is just some data that I made up. The details are not that important. We have some order month, faculty, department, whatever, sales, etc., semester, etc., all these things like that, not critical for our purposes. Now, the first thing we want to do is we want to track sales over a month. So from month to month, excuse me. So essentially what's happening here is that I'm going to have my revenue, if you will. That's going to be a continuous variable, and month. Now, month is normally considered categorical, but we're going to treat it as if it's continuous so that we can make a little line, a line chart, if you will, where we can track this change over months. That's what we're going to do. So the tool we need to make this happen is a pivot chart. So we're going to click on insert, then we're going to click on pivot table, not chart, pivot table, excuse me. And we're just going to leave all these features as they are and let it create this in a new worksheet. So here's my new worksheet. And so I want revenue, so I'm going to put that down here in the values. And then after that, I also want month. So let's see here. Where is month? Sometimes it can be naughty. Let's see here. So I got to click refresh. Okay, there we go. Now I have month there. So if you manipulate the table, or if you manipulate the chart, you might have to click refresh. So here's all my information here. So I have this, and again, like I just said, if you manipulate, sometimes you have to refresh. So you have to click on the refresh button. I don't need to do that right now. Now, one thing I want to do is I want to remove all these excess decimals. Again, this happened because I made some play data and I didn't round it. So I'm done with that. And so now if I click back inside the pivot table here, I can go over here up to pivot table analyze and click on pivot chart. Now, again, we have to remember what was the original goal. And the original goal was to try to track revenue over time, over months, so over several months. So probably in this situation, the most appropriate visualization would be a line chart. Again, these are all things you need to know in addition to how to do this in Excel. So I click on line chart and I click OK. All right, here's my line chart. Now there's several more things I want to do. Let me make this a little bit bigger for you. I want to remove this sum of revenue stuff. So I'm going to right click and then click on hide all fill buttons on the chart. They disappear. I want to remove the y-axis here. It'll make sense in a second. So I just highlight that and click delete. I don't need this legend, so I click on that and delete. I want to give it a name. So sales by month. You can call it whatever you want. This is what I will call it. And let's see here, what else? I want to change the size. So we're going to do 3 by 8 for me, but it's going to depend on what size you want. So I just click on the chart, and then up here in format is how I did that. And so now it's looking pretty good. Now, this is what we're going to do. We're going to copy this. So I'm going to press Control C, and we're going to make a new place here. And so first thing I want to do is I want to make this a little bit more presentable. So I'm going to highlight all cells and just, click on gray here. And now I have a nice solid color background. And I'm just going to put my chart here up in A1. And you can see it's right there. Everything is set up. Now there's a few more things I might want to do to kind of customize it. So I click on the green plus here. Click on the labels. And then click on the, highlight this first. And then click on the little black triangle. I want more options. And so now I'm going to click down here on numbers. And I'm going to change numbers to, I'm going to change this from general to currency. And this is going to be really hard to see, but way down here in the lower right hand corner, I have something called format code. I'm going to remove a lot of this information here, and I'm going to put K right after that comma. And this will help to shrink down how much information you can see in the numbers. And so if you look at the chart, while I do this, I click add. And so now you can see 16,000K or 16K, 8K, 16K, etc. So the numbers are condensed. And so we can see how much we had in sales by month here. That's kind of the beauty of that. And so everything here is set up. So our first chart is pretty much done. Now I'm going to rename this sheet. And I'm going to call it our dashboard. Just press enter like that. And then the sheet where I got this from, I'm just going to rename this, call it sales table, sales pivot table. So sales pivot, just call it sales pivot. All right. Now we're going to go back to our raw data. That's this sheet right here. And now we're going to make a second pivot table, pivot chart. So we're going to kind of repeat what we've already done. Click on insert, click on pivot table. We're going to leave all this alone here and just click OK. And so all our information here is now in a new table. So this time I want revenue again. I'm going to put that in values, and I want, teacher or salesperson in the rows. So everything here is set up just how I want it. Remember, have to change the decimals here to 2. All right. That's what we want. And so now we can make our actual pivot chart. Let's see here. So I go to pivot table, analyze, pivot chart. And now this time I'm looking at the salesperson, and that is going to be a categorical variable. So, it's different people. There's no continuous relationship there. And I'm looking at revenue, which is also going to be, a continuous variable. So I have a categorical and a continuous, and I'm looking at mapping my data that way. So again, what we need this time is columns, basically bar graph, and it's already highlighted for us. So we click OK. And so again, it's kind of rinse and repeat, if you will. Remove the buttons here. I want to delete the y-axis. I don't need the legend here. Clear that out. I want to give it a different name. So sales by sales person, if you will, like that. Like so. That looks pretty good. Now, for the formatting, 3 by 5, I'm happy with the format in terms of the size. And so now all we do is we Control C and we move this to our dashboard. So I'm going to put him right here, start him in A20 like so, and paste. And we, again, more repeating. This time I click on the green plus sign again. I want data labels, so I'll put that, and then I will click on the black triangle, click on more options, and I need to click on the bars here, go down and find numbers, and I want to change the category to currency, and I'm going to format the code. I'm going to delete this stuff right here, the two hashtags, and then the 0.00, put a K right after the comma, click add, and so now the numbers are nice and summarized there, and you can see that. So I'll make it a little bit bigger for you, so you can see that nice and good. All right, now we're going to include our splicer, which is kind of a way to filter our data. So let me go ahead and show you how we do that. So I'm going to click right here on Pivot Chart and Analyze. Now I'm going to click on Insert Slicer. And so I have to figure out how do I want to, what do I want to slice here? And so I want to go by, we call it semester or region. Click on that. And so now what happens is that when I highlight or de-highlight or unhighlight something, it changes what information is present. Right now, all three of the choices here are clearly highlighted, so I get all the aggregate data for that. But let's say I only want to know about sales for second here. Now you can see it changes. Or maybe I want to know only for first. Again, it changes. If I want to know everything, now I have the data for first, enter, and second. That's how this works. And I'm going to create a second slicer. Let's see here. Pivot Chart Analyze. A second slicer, this time by salesperson. Okay, and so now this is going to go right here. We can line this up nice and neat. Okay, and so now I can see this is just the sales of one person over the course of the entire year. Or I can see the aggregate all together. Or I can see it for two people. Like so. And so this is for Chuck and Darren, if you will. So there's lots of different ways to play with this. Now, if you've noticed is that only the top chart is changing. If we want both charts to change at the same time, there's one more step that we need to do in order to complete this dashboard. So I'm going to click on my first slicer, right click on this, and then click on Report Connections. And so I want this thing to report connections for both. All right. Same thing, repeat the process for the second one. Report connections, and we want to highlight all of this information. And so now you can see that I can look at it for individual people. So now here I only have the information, the aggregate sales for Darren. This time I have the aggregate sales for James, and in the top left chart, you can also see how things change over time. And of course, I can have two people at the same time if I want. So here's the aggregate sales for Darren, the aggregate sales for James, and of course in the top chart, you can see how their sales have changed over time. And so this is really, just scratching the surface of the potential of what can be done when you are trying to make dashboards inside Microsoft Excel. So let me try to summarize what we've done, and then we will wrap up this video. In this particular video, we learned how to make a simple dashboard inside Microsoft Excel. In order to do this, there's lots of different things you need to know in advance. First of all, and most importantly, you must make sure you know exactly what it is you want to know. And that involves, setting up, at least in the back of your mind, objectives or a research question, so that then you can find the appropriate tool inside Excel to allow you to get your answer. Once you figure out what it is you want to know, like I've just said, you must use your pivot charts and your pivot tables in an appropriate manner to help you to get the information you are looking for. So we use pivot tables, and we also use pivot charts, and we use splicers, and we put all this information together in one worksheet that can be manipulated to help us to learn exactly what it is we want to know. So we can share this with colleagues, or we can share this with our boss or our superiors and really clean things up. One last thing that I could mention here is that if you really wanted to, you could hide these other worksheets down here at the bottom so that people don't mess with them. So just click on the hide here. And this is important if you're, people who are not techie satisfied, they might break something. But for now, that is it for this video. So my name is Darren Thomas. I am the Director of Educational Research Techniques Thank you for watching and take care.